What are you? I am constantly asked this question about my ethnic background, and while I am of nationality, while my nationality is American, I'm always proud to say that I am of Mexican origin. Even then, however, I am leaving out some specificities, such as the fact that both of my grandfathers were from foreign countries, one from Lebanon and the other one from Poland, and I'm also a direct descendant of the Nahuatl people, who were the indigenous people that composed most of the Aztec Empire. Well, what if I told you that I am also of African descent? Now, physically, it's not very noticeable, but Africans have been in Mexico as early as the 1500s. And today I want us to talk about this third root of Mexico, the African root, as I introduce you all to three people. America's first liberator, Mexico's very first black president, and a current-day Afro-Mexican beauty queen that fights diligently at making the Afro-Mexican face visible to the world. Now, according to the Smithsonianeducation.org website, in their publication titled Africa's Legacy in Mexico, Africans have been in Mexico since 1520. This same source also lets us know that New Spain, which was Mexico's name as a colony, also brought in more African slaves than any other entity on the Western Hemisphere, even more so than the United States, totaling over 200,000 people within that 300-year period that the institution lasted. Now, in that group of people, that huge group of people, one of the people that came was a man named Gaspar Yanga. Now, Yanga, according to the blackpast.org website in their publication titled Yanga Gaspar, was rumored to be of African royal lineage, and he was an enslaved worker in the plantations of Veracruz, Mexico, which is the location that we're seeing here. In 1570, however, he and many people that followed him eventually escaped and went to the mountainous areas of Córdoba, Veracruz, and established a settlement which was then known as a palenque. This palenque remained unbothered by the Spanish for over 40 years, that is until they decided to send a well-armed militia to capture the escaped slaves. However, they realized that that was not a good idea, since not only were they defeated once, they were defeated twice by the people of the palenque that were led by Yanga. So Yanga, now as a successful leader, decided that he was going to do a peace treaty or peace arrangement with the Spanish with 11 conditions, the most important one being that they needed to recognize this entity, which we are seeing here, as a legal entity. The Spanish were apprehensive at first, but after years of negotiation, in 1816, this town was founded, and it was then called San Lorenzo de los Negros, which today is known as Yanga, Veracruz, and where you can see a statue that honors this man's courage and valor, which still stands today. This accomplishment earned him the title of America's first liberator. Now, centuries later, but with the same enthusiasm for autonomy, was a man named Vicente Guerrero. Now, Vicente was of Afro-Indio roots, and he was of very humble origins, as he and his family worked as mule drivers, as learned on the blackpast.org website, which the publication is titled Guerrero Vicente. We also learn here that this man traveled throughout Mexico, and through his travels in Mexico as a mule driver, he was introduced to the idea towards a war of independence against the Spanish. His enthusiasm for autonomy led him to enroll in the military, and in the military, his soldierly efficacy and his military tactics moved him up in ranking within the military. It also increased his notoriety, and it increased his following, primarily by people of Afro and Indio descent, who he recruited himself to join the movement for independence, as learned on the article Mexico's First Black President, found on the berkeley.dailyplanet.com website. After Mexico gained its independence in 1810 and it had their first president, Vicente Guerrero became Mexico's second president, but Mexico's first black president. Mexico has had two black presidents. There's also been Benito Juarez. So he had a short term. He was assassinated, but within his term, the major accomplishments were the fact that he abolished the 300-year institution of slavery, and also was a creator of the original design for what is now the Mexican flag. So when you see the Mexican flag, it was an Afro-descendant who designed that. Because of his abolishment of slavery, people compare him to Abraham Lincoln. Because of his military expedience and his military influence, people often refer to him as the George Washington of Mexico. But for many Mexicans, prideful Mexicans, he's always known as the greatest man of color. So as we learned today, Gaspar Yanga had a city named after him, and Vicente Guerrero had a state named after him, and from that state comes the beautiful Samantha Leva. Now, Samantha Leva competed for the Miss Guerrero title, and she won, and she became a competitor for Miss Mexico, where she came in 3rd place, as highlighted by the AtlantaBlackStar.com website in their article titled Afro-Mexican Beauty Queen stands for community visibility and shakes country's beauty standards. Now, Samantha works endlessly with national organizations to bring justice to the Afro-Mexican community. The source also highlights that the 23-year-old nurse has improved the education of children in her hometown, and also is one of the leading promoters of the Black Lives Matter movement in Mexico. In December of this year, Samantha Leva will represent Mexico at the Miss Supranational pageant, and we will become the very first Afro-descendant woman to ever represent Mexico at an international competition. In 2016, Mexico finally added the Afro-descendant option in their census and in any legal document that has anything to do with citizenship. Although this option came centuries after it should have been established, I think that no one and nothing can take away the rich and beautiful contribution of the Afro-descendants to Mexico, to its history, and to its flag. And I hope that through the knowledge that you all gained today, that you can also disseminate this message and allow what is considered a third root to become a paradise of rich and beautiful culture, which should be flourished beyond the Mexican border. So thank you very much.